All right, we're going to set this baby to record so we can share it with the rest of the Celly Strength community. Before I throw up any slides, I just want to say hello and welcome to this hot topic for Celly Strength and beyond. I know she opened up this conversation for her entire community because it's really a topic that many of us tend to forget, which is around recovery, right? And so I'm really excited to be able to share with you guys some really key elements to how you can really double the ROI on every rep that you guys are lifting in this program and when you're in the gym, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to share my whole window. Apologize for for what you guys are about to see with the infinity window that goes nuts. It's like it's kind of crazy. But once I throw up my slide deck, it'll stop being so nuts on you. Okay, you guys see it?
You got it.
Thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, you guys. So this is all about going beyond the burn. And the reason I really love that is because, you know, most of my career has been in strength and conditioning. You know, I was working in a studio for about 15 years with one of the best fitness professionals I know that's out there, Todd Durkin. He was actually one of Ashley's mentors. She was in his mastermind for years. That's how we got connected, because her and my husband were both in that mastermind. And I worked under him for several years, but my background is in clinical exercise physiology. So I was the overqualified personal trainer in his gym. You know, he gave me all the special cases. He's like, all right, you know, like this one has high blood pressure. This one has a hip replacement. This one's dealing with this injury. And I loved this special cases because my background was in clinical exercise physiology. I just didn't love working in the hospital setting, but I love science. I'm a real geek. So I'm going to bring a little bit of science to you guys today, but I'm going to hopefully make it feel approachable, like you understand how that science is showing up in your daily life and in your workout routines and in your recovery. So I'm really going to go heavy into the 4 pillars of muscle recovery. And this is midlife muscle recovery because not all of this really pertains to the 20-somethings, even the 30-somethings. It's once you get into your 40s, 50s, and beyond that your muscles really start to change, right? So what I'm going to share with you is, yes, you've mastered the stimulus. You're here. You're in the Celly Strength community. You guys understand the power of strength training and combining it with the BFR bands, because that is creating an optimal stimulus for your muscles to grow, right? But I'm going to help you unlock those results, because I believe that if you can support the muscle growth in the 23.5 hours after those bands come off, you will absolutely double your results with every rep, because recovery is actually when you get to multiply your workout efforts, right? Recovery isn't time off. And I kind of get really, I get really verbal with this with my personal clients and people that are in my community as well. I'm like, listen, recovery is the multiplier of what you just did in the workout. And so there's active things you do to help your muscles get better. So here are goals today. I'm going to run through these quick because I want to make sure I hit everything and have a chance to talk to you guys after. I want to empower you with some of that basic muscle education. A lot of it you already know, so it's going to be pretty quick, right? But the basics is really important to understand the why, right? Then I'm going to change your psychological relationship with recovery in this presentation. You're going to have a completely different view on what you feel recovery is. Then we're going to master those 4 pillars of, I call it double result recovery, because when you do these recovery strategies, you're going to double the results that you're getting with BFR, right? And then you're thinking about those scientific superpowers that are out there to support your recovery practices. And that's a little insider tip that I'm going to be giving with you guys towards the end. I hope you're excited about some of that. So as a big picture, kind of like really let's pull back really, really far and just understand the three things that what naturally happens to muscle as we age. Muscle is less responsive. That's why I actually caught you with the BFR. She's just like, you're not getting the same growth with the same stimulus anymore, because as we get older, our muscles are less responsive to that stimulus. You also have faster breakdown. It's just inevitable. Muscle loss speeds up as we get older. So it's important that we're strength training, right? Yes, you can't give that up. And then slower recovery. This is like the perfect storm of why our bodies break down as we age, because the muscular system is the most vital system that our body has. It all supports that skeletal system, our hormonal glands, endocrine, all the things. And when our recovery is also slower, we have that soreness, we have that fatigue, and we don't get as much gains in what we're doing in the gym, right? So what I'm going to really dive into is that last piece, because the first couple you already understand. You're here, you understand that building muscle is important, especially as we get older, right? So slower recovery happens for three different reasons. We have cellular, hormonal, and structural changes in our body that create fewer signals to the muscles to build and repair. All right. And those are really important to understand. This is like the basic stuff. Your cellular changes are like a decline in the muscle cells. You have older cells that are literally asleep. They're there, but they're just not waking up. They're just like, I'm dormant. I'm just going to take a rest, And then the recycling system is less efficient in our body. So everything just like waste products stay there longer. You just don't have as much turnover anymore. And the recycling of those cells is not happening as quickly. The hormonal changes. We all love this part, right? We know we have less testosterone, estrogen, less growth hormone being produced, IGF-1, which is a muscle repair. And we've got lower response to that growth, right? The anabolic resistance is literally a term for just the fact that we don't even use protein as efficiently as we get older. So you're eating protein, but why isn't my muscle growing from that protein, that building block that I'm consuming? We're less efficient. And that's just important to understand as you're realizing that, wow, I can't just like eat whatever I want and get the same results, right? And then there's structural changes. As we get older, our cardiovascular system changes. And so obviously exercise is important, but you're naturally going to have a reduced blood flow to your muscles. Connective tissues get stiffer, right? So that's why we need to focus a lot more on mobility and flexibility. And we have a chronic low-grade systemic inflammation as we get older. Congratulations, body, right? So this is why recovery is harder. That's why when you throw somebody into a strength training program without realizing these elements, you can really set them up for failure, because they're going to feel like the Tin Man for like 10 months and they're going to be like, I quit, right? BFR is beautiful because it's less of that demand on the body so quickly, so aggressively. But those of you that are in this program and you're utilizing BFR and you want to start lifting heavier, you want to do more, but your body just feels like, it's crickety crankety, it's not getting back into the flow. Some of these things are the reason why. Now, I'm here to tell you that you can give your muscles an advantage by simply improving the recovery practices that happen outside of the strength, right? We're lifting, we're holding those weights, we're moving our body, but let's give our muscles an advantage, because really the growth of your muscle begins when you put the weight down, right? And here's what happens. I have a 50-50 rule. This is a rule that I tell everybody, it's kind of funny, but I want you to think about this in your own kind of routine, in your own system of how you work out, what your calendar looks like, right? You might have right now those 2 to 3 days of strength training routines on your calendar. Maybe you've also got a little bit of the yoga, maybe Pilates, maybe you've added some of the stretching routines that are in the program, but there needs to be a 50-50. You're working out, you're putting that stimulus on your muscles, and you're creating that stimulus 50% of the time. The other 50% of your workout program should be focused on recovery practices, right? And I'm going to go through what those are, but this is the rule only because when you put that weight down, now the growth begins. Now it's time to heal, repair, and build. I hope that makes really clear sense, right? So we're going to go through, I call them the 4 pillars of the muscle recovery, and they are very simple. And that's why I love this talk, because once you realize and it kind of clicks like, oh, I should spend a little bit more attention on this, because it's not just a day off. It's not just time away from the gym. This is important growth building practices. All right. The first one I call is the cortisol flip, right? Now, the science, I'm going to tell you a little of the science just so that you understand the importance of this. When you're lifting, right, you have micro tears in your muscles, right? You're actually tearing your muscles a little bit inside. And what it does is sends an emergency signal in the brain. It's like a controlled crisis, I call it, right? And this is happening because you're tearing the muscle fibers. That's normal. And that's actually, it's a good thing to do that. But what happens is it's a metabolic stressor, right? So your body is like, I got to release some cortisol. I'm releasing adrenaline. It's increasing your heart rate. It's increasing the blood flow. It's trying to send more oxygen to the area, right? And it activates your sympathetic nervous system. You're like, your body's like, whoa, what's happening? You can think about it, what's happening inside as a controlled crisis when you're lifting those weights, right? That's what's happening. So what you've got to do, the solution to that is to move from stress to synthesis. You want to build protein synthesis after muscle protein synthesis. You're trying to rebuild right away. Like once you're done working out, it begins. You got to tell the body that the threat is over. Okay, you're out of crisis, and you want to quickly switch from that sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system reacting. This is really important, and it needs to happen right at the end. So when the workout is over, I know a lot of people, I know what they do. They do the 1-2 stretch maybe with us, right, in the workout, but that's it, and they're done, right? Maybe that gave you enough time to switch gears. Maybe it didn't. But I always say that after that workout, really take 5 minutes to breathe deep. Box breathing is one of the best ways to reset your nervous system. You know, that count for 4 in, hold for 4, exhale for 4, keep your breath out for 4, and then repeat. So it goes in a box. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. This is a way people that are having anxiety attacks, that's what they're taught to do. They're trying to switch from that sympathetic nervous system freaking out to parasympathetic. It's the rest and digest system, right? And breathing does that. As well as when you're stretching, you're combining not only more blood flow, allowing the muscles to lengthen. This is a huge, huge way that you reset your system right after a workout. So I'm always like a huge advocate for that, like a quick cool down. That's important to do. And I always say daily meditation is one of my systems for flipping the cortisol in my body, because, you know, you might be a very type A person like me or not, but no matter what, we get these stress hormones that are released in our body due to everyday activities. Maybe you're not lifting a weight, but maybe you just had an aggressive conversation, or you're stressed out about a work thing, or you've got a lot on your plate and you're doing a bunch of mom stuff. I don't know what it is for you. Meditation is a way to flip that system again, right? And just a daily 5 minutes, take some time to breathe, switch up gears, allow yourself to lower that cortisol and get that adrenaline down. This is a huge, huge element of physical recovery. If you do this, you'll sleep better, you'll feel better throughout the day, and your body will be repairing faster. Okay? I hope that makes sense. You immediately repair faster when you can switch gears into that rest and digest versus that, you know, that threat that your body feels it's under. Now, this is the second pillar, and I'm just speeding right through this because I know you guys know a little bit of this stuff already. The restoration blueprint is what I call the Tin Man, right? As we get older, we have stiffness in our body. The connective tissue we lose that elasticity, okay? Not only around the muscles, the fascia that you know goes around the muscle, but also, you know, the tendons, right? The attachment from bone to muscle, and they get tight and it just gets harder to move, right? And if you're only contracting, if you're only lifting, you're doing those reps, you're contracting, and you're not lengthening and you're not releasing tension, you have a strong body, but it's brittle. I always think about this as like a rubber band. Imagine you have a rubber band and you kind of stretch it every day and you kind of fling it at something. That rubber band's pretty good. What about the one that sits in your drawer for months or years? And then you go to stretch that rubber band and it's not really like moving very well and you feel like it's going to just break, right? You found an old rubber band. That's how our body starts to feel, but almost more extreme. The rubber band lasts way longer. Our body's going to get aches and pains and injuries a lot quicker if we're not moving it, if we're only contracting. So this is why the in between those workouts is so vital, right? We have to remember that, if you had a good strength day, that next day, you've really got to lengthen the muscles. You've got to get them pliable again. Maybe massaging the muscle tissues. Maybe you go to the massage therapist, or maybe you just get on that foam roller, right? And you press that tension out of the connective tissues that circles the muscle, right? Stretching and foam rolling and massage are totally separate ways of healing and recovering the muscle fibers, right? You've got to really create that with both. And then, walking, that kind of stuff. Yoga, that's included, right? You've got these things in your library, right? And so I really want you to think about how much you're doing in between the days you strength train, right? To really create that mobility, that pliability, and that recovery, because cardiovascular health, you're increasing blood flow now to the muscles. You're allowing that replenishment, that oxygen to come in and to heal and to repair and to rebuild, right? If not, things get stuck, right? And they get tight and they get achy. That's because we're not fleshing out all of those different, like the recycling system that I said gets slower. We need to have the blood flow to recycle, right? Those damaged proteins or mitochondria and things that are in the cells and that things that are going to help us rebuild. All right. Now, I always say this is important. I don't know if you do your foam rolling at a minimum 1 to 2 times a week. And it only has to be 10 minutes. It's got to be on the areas maybe that feel tense, maybe get a little bit more tight. If you have a desk job, you better be getting on that foam roller, massaging those glutes, that piriformis. If you're a runner, a walker, you got to get your IT bands, your quads. These are the things that over time, they show up like this. You're just like, how did I all of a sudden have this pain in my hip? I'm like, oh, well, you've been doing bar class for the last 3 years and you've never been on a foam roller once. So you're just chronically working muscles and never creating the release, right? Daily stretch routines are huge. And then getting that steady state cardio in, right? So some of that was on the solution page. But the system is to really get into a flow and give yourself that gut check. Like, am I doing what I need to do in between those strength sessions to help my body feel it's optimal? Because when you do, you're going to heal faster, right? Your muscles become more pliable, less strain on the tendons and the joints. You're already getting that with BFR training because you don't have to lift as heavy, but you're still lifting, right? And if you want to have increases in your strength gains, you're going to want to add a little bit of those reps and you're going to get a little bit more on the weights, right? You're going to be lifting the 8 pounds or the 10 pounds, right? And if you do that, you're going to see stronger muscle tone. You're going to see your body get a lot stronger, but you don't want to also have the result of aches, pains, injury, not to mention the inflammation, right? I see this a lot of times where people just feel like, my body just feels tired. That is a clear indication that you've got a lot of inflammation, right, in your body. So in order to lower all those things, we've got to treat our body with this recovery practice. All right, so this is just your gut check so far, right? Looking at your calendar, looking at your routine. I'm not pointing any fingers, right? But how does all of that so far show up on your workout calendar, right? And if it's not scheduled, think about scheduling a couple of these things and do it in a place, in a time that feels simple and easy. I'm always foam rolling at night or right after a workout. Stretching is morning routine, right? Like I don't even really do anything before I stretch. It just makes me feel good. But you've got to decide when you want to do it. Some people do it at night before bed. Some people do it right after their workouts. In between, they might do it after a walk, or maybe they do a yoga session to get their muscles lengthened out. These are the things that you've got to look at and say, when does it work for me, right? When is it easy to get it in? Now, I have to bring up this one, the nutrient window. I know you guys have heard about this before, that, protein is so important, but it truly is as we get older. Our body is less efficient in how we metabolize and use it for muscle building. It's really frustrating because you're already like, how do I get more protein? Do I have to have another can of tuna today? It's so hard for our body to be getting enough protein to heal those muscles. But most people aren't getting enough. They lack either enough calories or enough protein calories. And really, without those building blocks, our muscles cannot build. They cannot build as quickly. So one thing I always say is you got to prioritize that high quality protein to stimulate the muscle synthesis, especially right after a workout. Right. And that's important. I know a lot of people that kind of wait to eat, or, they have like, they don't specify the meal for when they're going to have their strength day. But you should really thinking about it and adding supplements to support protein intake, right? This is important. I say this is my system here, and I'm just sharing it with you guys because it's highly important that you take this seriously to see the gains in your muscle, is to get that grocery list, protein rich foods. I'll send you mine if you want it. You got to try and get the 30 grams, right? That's why I say have a protein shake. Those things are so high in protein. Get the clean formulas. Try not to get a lot of those extra sugars and ingredients, but protein shakes are miracle workers, right? And you always want to eat within 30 minutes after your workout. The timing is actually important. Yeah, because that's when your muscles are going to work on healing. They're ready to go. They want to heal, and they need the building blocks. Now, this is a big slide, but this is a big one, sleep. And I had to give you some of the science because people don't realize how important sleep is. How many hours do we spend in our bed a day, right? At least 7 to 8. Some of us are in there longer. Some of us are not in there as long. But think about how many hours that is, right? It's a quarter of your day. And so one of the things you really need to understand is that your sleep, right, it has a cycle, and it's got a cortisol regulation. You've heard of it, the circadian rhythm, right? So you really have to understand that there is a production of cortisol that happens in your body based on your sleep cycle, right? And it naturally drops at night. Right? Cortisol, it comes down at night. Then there's a first phase of your sleep where you're like, this is deep sleep, right? I am in deep sleep. This is when like your cortisol is inhibited. You're not producing any cortisol. And this is when stress is at your least. This is the most important part of your sleep, is the deep sleep. Okay, right? And then you get the morning surge. It's like your adrenal glands start to like give you a little surge of cortisol between 2 and 4 a.m. And then it peaks right when you wake up. So based on your rhythm, think about your sleep rhythm. Like, when do you go to bed? How far into that sleep are you asleep before you wake up? How many times during your sleep do you wake up? And do you feel rested when you wake up? Okay, that's something I want you to think about because it has to do with that cortisol. And I talked about the cortisol flip. The lower we can get that cortisol by the end of the day, the better you're going to sleep at night, right? You have something called anabolic repair at night, and you shift from this breakdown in your body to building. Sleep is the time our bodies release the most human growth hormone. You hear about it. Let's talk about it when you're doing your BFR training. Well, when you're asleep, your body produces the most it ever does all day long in your rest period, right? So you have this hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis that resets, right? This is so geeky, but this is the commander of your stress, right? And this is when you replenish your adrenal glands. The reason I'm giving you all this science is because I want you to understand how important sleep is. And many of you probably already do. I'm probably preaching to the choir. But if you don't already realize the importance of quality sleep. I'm not just saying like get your 8 hours, get in bed and lay there with your, with your TV on, and then you kind of like fall asleep, and then you wake up 3 times to go pee, and then you get up for the day. No, 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 no. I'm talking about like you're done. You're out. Everything's replenishing. Cortisols are suppressed. You're getting all that human growth hormone released. You're replenishing your adrenal glands. You are waking up feeling like a rock star. This is the most important thing you can do for your health overall, right? Besides strength training. But strength training is actually more of a stressor if you're not sleeping. So this is why it's important. Now, this is important that you realize the strength training regularly. Look at my slide. You can tell that I didn't get to edit this one quite fully. But you want to do that because it does help your sleep, right? You're creating a real good thing for your body by giving yourself that challenge and then bringing your body back down, right? But the sleep hygiene practices help your body and your mind relax. So this decreases your inflammation and your sensitivity to stress, right? This is why we have to do some certain things like at night, we got to lower that mental load, right? We have to focus on the meditation and deep breathing exercises that might be things that you're like, yeah, I don't need to do that. You do. Those are the things I don't want you to disregard. Light stretching is a great way to calm the system. No screen time before bed. And when I say that, it's like 30 minutes before bed. It's not like you can't watch a movie, it's not like you can't enjoy a Netflix show with your husband or wife or whatever. It's important that you're just like, I'm not watching it up until the point where I'm like trying to clonk out, right? So giving yourself that time. I always tell people, you don't grow from what you do, you grow from what you recover from, right? So that has everything to do with what this is about. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. What if you had cellular superpowers, right? Do you realize that everything that happens in your life is performed by cells, right? Your energy, your metabolism, building muscle, the communication, the nervous system, your defense system, transport system, they repair and they replicate in your body, right? Cells are the essence of who we are. So I hope you realize that. Now imagine they were all super. You're not just like, I got my cells based on my age and how healthy I am. But imagine we infuse them with superpowers. This is what I'm talking about. This is a superpower tool. Peptides are a revolutionary, not even like I'm saying, not that they've just shown up in the world, but now they're showing up over the counter. Okay. Peptides have been around for a long time, but you see the wealthy get to use the peptides or the professional athletes use the peptides. What they are, they make cells super. Okay. And I want to explain this how easily I can, because there's a lot of geeky science around this. And a lot of people don't understand the power of peptides. They are literally short chain amino acids. So they're not as long as proteins, right? What they do, proteins are like the building blocks, but these guys are the messengers. They go in and they signal. They're like, they tell the cells what to do. They aren't just like, I'm here to work with you. They're like, here's the blueprint, dude. Let's go. So they turn up the volume. I always say they're like having a megaphone on all your cells, and they're talking a lot louder. They're not asleep. They're not slow, right? What normally happens to our cells, right? They get slower. They get more dormant. These guys go in and superpower what's going on, right? And so proteins, they're cellular components, and proteins are cellular components. Peptides are messengers. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like this, right? I'm big in the bioactive peptides, right? There are two different kinds, and I'm going to tell you about them. But these are things that you need to understand, because as you're strength training, as you're recovering, as you're aging, you're going to want to know about these latest scientific, basically things available to you now that can help your body recover. And it's all about recovery for me, all about recovery. Now, what it does, you can see in this picture, you look at that muscle, and what you have all these cells. And what you want to do is you want a key that can unlock and get into that receptor and tell it exactly what to do, right? So when our muscles need to start repairing, peptides go in. It's like, okay, the protein, they're the building blocks. We need them. You have to eat. Peptides are not going to take over your food supply. They are not a protein supplement, right? They're a messenger that tells those cells how to build faster and what to build, right? So they go in, they unlock the key to that cellular wall and tell it how to operate better. This is what I mean by superpower, right? Now, I got an example here. I call it the recovery games when it comes to a normal cell and then a bioactive cell, right? When you're getting a bioactive peptide in your body. And did you guys know that we have about 7,000 natural bioactive peptides in our body that have specific functions? Yes, we do. And science and AI is now able to identify these peptides in foods. Bioactive means it comes from plants and it comes from animals, right? Bioactive. And we have them in our body already, but not at the quantity that gives us an edge, gives us an advantage. It doesn't work as quick, right? A normal cell is basically, it relies on a slow digestive process to break down food into amino acids, right? Amino acids. Then the repair is passive. So it takes about 48 to 72 hours to fix micro tears in our muscles. And then you have muscle loss, the breakdown of muscle, which is a whole nother thing, which you guys don't have to worry so much about because you're lifting, you're strength training, you're not worried about the loss of muscle. But a lot of people that are not strength training, they've really got to focus on this piece, right? A bioactive cell is fast, right? It's a key. It goes in there, it enters the cell quickly. It bypasses digestion because it's not a long chain amino acid, it's a short chain. So it goes right into that bloodstream, and it's a messenger. It upregulates things. It says, all right, let's go. Repair is active. It actually will 4 times, it repairs muscle 4 times faster than regular protein. So this is stuff that is so revolutionary in the game. And this is a slide that kind of shows you what's happening when your body has super cells or when it has just normal cellular health. And normal cellular health is great too, right? I mean, you're doing your best, right? You've got those things working for you. But if you superpower your cells up, you can have faster recovery times, faster muscle repair, faster recovery, less fatigue, and greater performance. You can see it 4 times, right? And 1.5 times the recovery rate. So this is just a slide to give you a visual representation of just how powerful natural peptides in your body and from nature, plants and animals, that you can take at higher doses, right? Because it's a supplement now. It's a supplement that you can digest and you can use as like you would use protein, but now it's peptide. So everybody's heard of GLP-1, right? Everybody knows GLP-1. That's why I brought it up, because I want you to realize that these, it's glucagon-like peptide 1 is what it is, right? Everybody's taking it for weight loss because it's a powerful peptide. It's going in, it stimulates insulin secretion, it reduces appetite, it slows the stomach emptying, it promotes fullness. This peptide does that. It's crazy. But this is made in a lab, right? This is not a bioactive peptide. This is a synthetic. These are all synthetic peptides that are on the market right now. They're made in a lab, right? So they're molecules that are made in a lab to produce a peptide that has a specific function for the cell. It goes in, it attaches to a receptor on a cell, tells it what to do faster and better than your body could normally do it, right? And these are synthetic peptides that most people understand and know. But bioactive peptides are the new way. They're the new thing, especially for us health professionals like myself, like Ashley. She's heard me talk about it a ton. She's tried the fit peptides and all the things. So this is something I'm bringing up because you don't have to resort to the synthetic peptides. And this is the difference, right? Bioactive, you're going to see they're made from nature, plant and animals. Synthetic, made in a lab. It's okay to take them, but you have to remember, one's taken orally, one's usually injected. They're affordable, but they're not cheap. Synthetic are very expensive. This is a very important thing I want you to understand. Bioactive peptides have a short half-life, which means they go into the body, they do their job, and they're gone. Synthetic peptides have a long half-life. So they go in, they take over. They kind of tell your endogenous, cellular functions to like go to sleep, and they take over and they last a while, which is why they have to be monitored. There's no negative feedback loop when you're taking a bioactive peptide because they're not trying to mimic other functions in your body. They are not. They're just emphasizing, optimizing normal cellular function. Synthetic peptides, you got to be careful because they're going in there. There's a negative feedback loop on them because you almost build a tolerance to them. And if you don't cycle off of them, it could be dangerous for your body losing normal function, right, of those cells. So they're monitored. They have to be cycled. You can't take them as often or daily like you can with bioactive peptides. And there's been no contraindications to taking bioactive peptides because they're in your body already. They're endogenous, right? But synthetic, they're prescribed by doctors because they can have contraindications based on if you're on medication, if you have any kind of illness, chronic thing, diseases, things like that. You have to be careful. So when you're looking at these things, I really want you to know that there is serious science behind both of these. And peptides alone, you're going to hear a lot more about them in the future. It's kind of like the new thing that they are a supercell. They are building supercells. So with you guys, I wanted to tell you about just two that I love. The Fit, which is for muscle repair. This is the one that like 4X's, that muscle synthesis that I was telling you about. You eat protein, but you know what? You give it a little peptide boost, and that peptide you get more bang for your buck, right? Lowers chronic rate inflammation. It increases your strength and recovery. Fit is one of my favorite ones for those of you that are in this program, as well as the Restored. This is for sleep. This is when you're getting deeper, longer, deep sleep, which is when your body recovers, produces its most human growth hormone, and it gives your body that recovery. And I'm not going to go totally into these too much because I've already kind of dove into them enough, right? So I always say, go natural and feel super. Now, I want to recap really quickly here. I'm just about perfectly on time. The 4 pillars, right? The cortisol flip. Please remember, quickly switch from breakdown to build. When you're done with a workout, let's go. Breathing, stretching, getting that body to recover. The restoration, keeping the muscles pliable and pain-free, knowing that the more you do that stuff for your body, the better you're going to feel and the faster you are going to heal, right? Nutrient window. Give the cells the growth signals, right? The building blocks, the proteins, right? Even the natural peptides. Make sure that you have that window where you're giving your muscles exactly what it needs when it's time, right? Then you've got the Deep Sleep Multiplier, right? Shoot. Come on, block. You've got the Deep Sleep Multiplier, which is really important because sleep, oh no, what happened? Because sleep is when we heal. It's when we optimally recover. And this is the most important thing. I believe in all of these recoveries, sleep is the most vital. And then if you can add your cellular superpowers, you're a rock star. So optimize your results when you optimize your recovery, and you're going to double the ROI on every rep. And that's it. So this is my email. Follow me on Instagram. I talk a lot more about recovery. I talk a lot more about all the different ways that I can, help people like build strength, build a healthy lifestyle. I am also in Selly Strength producing fitness content. I'm teaching a live workout actually on Friday for Ashley since she's on vacation. And I love being a part of this community because I know that we all have the same goals. That's to build strength, to build strong bodies, to build strong lifestyles, and to feel our best. And now